now because it's a little cycle thingy. Oh, there we go. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Fireside Chat with TransEd. We're
All
going to
right.
talk about our 2020 construction year. And I'm Isabel.
And I'm Dallas.
So, before we go on up ahead here, we're just going to go through a little bit of who is actually on the call. And we'll start with Marisol. If you can just tell us a little bit about your position and your title on the project and what you actually do on the project.
Sure, I'm Marisol, and I'm one of the project environmental monitors. I have been on the project for 4 years tomorrow. So it's been really interesting seeing the project go from, right at the beginning, seeing everything to where we are now, which is really awesome. So I do environmental monitoring. I make sure that we're compliant with our contract. I make sure we're compliant with applicable environmental laws and legislation, ultimately making sure that throughout our construction, we're protecting the environment as well.
That's great, Isabel. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. How about we go to Ken next?
Sure. I've also been on a project for 4 years. Spent most of the time downtown and in the tunnel areas. So just as a construction area manager.
And we'll move on to Matt.
Hello, Matt Hilker. I am the scope lead for the Davies Station. I've also been on the project for 4 years, longer than Marisol, because she just got through. What I do is I am the coordinator and the head for the Davies Station. I coordinate the work with the subcontractors, work with the site super to make sure that everything gets up and going, and we make sure all the documentation in the place gets managed and pushed forward.
Excellent, Matt. And I love your hair, buddy. You look just like me. You're my favorite.
Yeah, so I'm Matt, not Dallas, so if you get confused.
All right, a man that's getting close to having as good a hair as us, Brian Connolly.
Yeah, I don't think there's much left in it now, but Brian Connolly. I've been on the project for just a little under 3 years, and for the first 2.5, I've spent down in the River Valley on the Tawatinâ Bridge. So I'll speak to that a little later. And for the last couple of months and for the remainder of this project, I'll be the construction manager for the remainder of the works.
Thanks, Brian. And lastly, Eric.
Well, hi, my name is Eric Marcotte, and I'm the commissioning manager on the project. Lots of fun. So this is where things start rolling and getting together, and when we see all those nice vehicles going on the infrastructure that has been put together. So it's going to be loads of fun. We're just starting on there, and we have a lot to talk about.
Well, thanks everybody for joining us. We're excited to share this project and the progress we've made in 2020 with the rest of the community. So those of you that have found us online, thanks for joining us. You should be able to go down into the notes with this YouTube video and be able to hopefully jump to different sections that you might be interested in. But if you're interested, stick with us. We got about 45 minutes ahead of us. We'll take you through the entire alignment and all the different features of the project and let you know the important work that we've been doing this year and give you a good look at what's coming next year. Over to you, Isabel. Lead us through this.
Okay, so we're just going to look a little bit at the Valley Line Southeast project and what it is. Who are these people? What do they do? So in a public-private partnership with the City of Edmonton, Valley Line Southeast is Edmonton's first low-floor transit system. And it has 13 kilometers of LRT from downtown Edmonton to Mill Woods, and 11 train stops and 1 elevated station with a 1,300 stall park and ride. Look at that train. Look at that inside of the train. It's just so, it's beautiful. Like it's I don't even think the photo does it justice. It just looks as amazing as that.
That's right.
Even better. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been in it myself. It's an amazing piece of work for sure, and we're going to hear more about it later in the presentation. TransEd, for those of you that may not know, is a consortium of Bechtel, Elliston, Bombardier, and Fengate. We are a partnership working with the City of Edmonton, as mentioned by Isabel earlier, as a P3. This is the first and largest one that the city's ever done, and we're really excited to be a part of it. We're nearing the end of construction. It's a really exciting time for us. We're moving into a stage now where we're well into commissioning, and I'm sure Eric's going to talk about that a little bit here later in the presentation. So we are anxious to get the public on our trains and operate this system for 30 years. And that's an important point that I want to bring up too. TransEd is not going away at the end of construction. We're here for another 30 years to operate this system for the City of Edmonton and for the citizens. So Welcome aboard very soon. I think we're going to start in the downtown area. So Ken, I'm going to bring you up onto this one here, please. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what we see in the photos here right now?
Sure, I'd love to, but let me first start out. So like I said, I am the area manager responsible for downtown, and we're building an LRT. We're actually building more than an LRT. We are building from face of building to face of building with tremendous coordination and patience from the local residents and businesses and communities. So, first off, just want to thank the surrounding businesses and communities for their patience with us. We're all working hard, to build it right, to coordinate as best as we're able to. So appreciate it as we're getting down to the last stages here of the heavy civil work. So what we're looking at right here is Harbin Road. We are pouring the Class B on the left, and you can see where we're topping off with the finished product, the paving stones on the right. In the background of the picture, you can see the Chinese structure, which is the main structure. There's still some artwork to go on at the roofing, but that will be the Chinese structure when we're done.
So Ken, that looks like a hole in the ground. Is that the tunnel portal that we're looking at, where the cars, the train will come out of the ground?
That is the tunnel portal. That's where we come to grade. And this is right at the corner of Jasper Avenue and 95th. So you can actually see in the background, we're loading one of the fans, the tunnel fans, into the portal, which is now sitting in the tunnel. We can talk about the tunnel in a little bit.
Excellent.
This is our transition to grade. It's been a busy year. This is basically the far east end of our downtown work, but essentially downtown, we've built 3 full stops, all the concrete work, and we're continuing on with the above ground work, all the structural steel, and now we're going to continue working that through the winter on the glazing, the curbs, and just dressing out the stop platform. So
I think we have a photo of that. Isabel, you want to go to the next slide for us? Yeah, there we go. That's the stop platform that you're talking about, isn't it, Ken?
Yes, this is the Churchill stop platform, right where we'll get off our LRT train system and connect with the existing LRT network. So yeah, that's the start of our dress out of these stop platforms. Some other interesting things that we've done this year. Like I said, we're building LRT station, but we had to build a 2,700 cubic meter underground storm tank to take all the flood water that might affect City of Edmonton and collect it. And that's underneath our track slab. We have built a resilient track slab in front of the wind spear and Citadel, which we affectionately call the bounty track, because we have 200 meters of track slab that sits on springs to reduce the vibration and noise. So it's been an exciting year for the civil works downtown. We have a tremendous amount.
That resilient track you're talking about, then that's right in front of the wind spear and between there and the Citadel. Is that right? So that's to prevent noise of the train passing then when it's going by those important cultural centers. Is that correct?
Noise as well as the vibration. That's correct. That whole track slab is elevated and sitting on springs. They're very big springs, bigger than the ones on your big pickup trucks. So.
Okay, so we're not going to feel any movement if the car's going over top of these trains. It's not like the train's going to bounce, like you say, a bouncy track through there. No. It's not quite that much movement, right?
No, there won't be movement. It's to help the noise and vibration, but us construction folks like to coin phrases and call them something a little simpler, right?
Excellent. All right, let's see what the next slide is. I think we're going to talk. Oh, you know what? I missed something. Go back. Isabel, I thought maybe we had a picture of Churchill, but I want to talk, Ken. Can you tell us a little bit about what's happening in Churchill Square and the connection of the Valley Line and how that's made with the Capital Line and the Metro Line?
Sure. So the Churchill connector, which is, I guess, at the back left of the left-hand photo, is
kind of where that bright light is, or close to it.
Right where the bright light is. That's right. Well, essentially, passengers will get off our network and they'll go through the connector station. So we're in the process of right now finishing the dress out of the connector building. We're putting escalators, doing the mechanical, electrical, and the system. So our whole traction power system for the downtown network is housed in the basement level of the connector station. And we're really doing the building finishes and we're just getting to the systems part, which Eric will talk about later. But
Yeah, so I mean, that building, if you walk by that, I think residents of Edmonton that have been in the downtown area would have seen a hole in the ground for a while there. We were doing a lot of work underground there, and that's, I think, what you're talking about, those systems installations, all underground. It's all rooms below the surface. What we see above ground is really just the connection to stairs and escalators and elevators, basically. That's why we call it the connector, isn't it?
That's correct. It ties right into the existing station at the mezzanine level.
Awesome. Isabel, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Okay, so for me, it's just this photo, like this photo is one of those that's like slow motion, movie worthy, like cover of a movie actually. This is one of the photos that we took when we had the media event I think it was in March when we
Yeah, that's
had
right.
media come by to look at the progress that we had made in the tunnel.
So, Isabel, talk about those two gentlemen in the picture. I think
Those guys
our
are just
viewers really
okay,
want to hear about them.
they're just the right people.
No,
Not too much to
that's
say
me,
about
and
them.
that's Mr. Ken Sullivan there.
Couple good-looking guys right there.
That's right. All right, Ken, tell us a little bit about what we're seeing in the tunnel.
Sure. This is actually a really great photo, Isabel. So it's a nice job on it. The vibrant orange is a PVC waterproofing membrane. So the tunnels are completely tank system waterproof. And what we're looking at in this picture is the waterproofing, the reinforcing steel, getting ready for the concrete pours. And you can see that Dallas and I are walking on the invert slab. So the invert has already been poured in this photo. So let's take a look at the next slide. So this one is, again, I guess one thing I should have mentioned, we have twin tunnels. So they're both 6-meter diameter. Dallas and I, the photo in March was I believe it was a northbound tunnel. This is a picture in March on the southbound tunnel where you can see that the actual arch concrete, the final lining has been cast. So between March and now, we've spent a lot of time. We've had to cast in walkways, put in the plinths. So the plinths are what the rail actually sits on. It's just the elevated concrete slabs that the rail sits on, and you can see us doing the fine tuning of the rail in the right hand photo. You can also see a lot of the electrical lighting is going in. So we're really at the finishing stages of the tunnel.
Excellent, thanks. All right, I think we're switching over now. Yeah, this is the Tawatinâ Bridge. All right, bringing in Mr. Brian Connolly. Brian, why don't you tell us what we see in the picture here back in February, and maybe walk us through the progress of installing the cable stays. I mean, we see one in the picture there, but you have a lot more information that I think you can share with the team and with those watching today that they'll find interesting. So take us through that, would you?
Excellent. Yeah, I'll take you back to a time in the project where we're all looking at this giant gap between the north and south of the river. I'm wondering if we're ever going to get there. And certainly when you look at the weather in that picture there, and everything is frozen, everything's dark and it's bleak, and our days are quite short. We ever wondered at what stage would we touch down on the south side of that river. But for all the bridge aficionados that are out there and listening into this one, the Tawatinâ Bridge is an extra dose cable stay bridge. Not going to get into the details of what makes it extra dose, but key feature of extra dose is just the shortened tower heights. So there's a lot of work going on with the slab itself. So significant amount of work in the slab and the post tensioning to take some of the pressure off the shorter towers. But in this photo here, we're just at our segment 6. There's 21 segments that get us across the river and 21 segments that bring us back up to the tunnel. And it's the first segment that takes that cable stay. So at this stage, everything is well hidden within the hoarding structure that we've got there. But there's two elements to the system. We've got the guide pipes and the anchors that are cast into the deck segments, and they angle. The guide pipe angles the pipe coming out of the deck, and it points it up towards the tower itself. And in that tower, we have a saddle, for want of a better word, and it's basically a true saddle, which allows the stays to pass through and come down and anchor themselves in the opposite segment on the opposite side of the bridge. And this is what makes it a balanced cantilever. So another little buzzword there for the bridge aficionados. It basically has to operate in that way that we can only ever go one segment out of balance, and we've got to pull it back into balance by loading the opposite side. And that's the way the bridge was constructed now between February and hopefully our next pour, or our next picture, if we want to flip onto it. Look at this. Look at all the photographs.
That is a fantastic picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a day that we all dreamed of. And if anyone's ever seen the pictures online of the bridges that don't meet up, and there's always that concern when you get to that last pour, that closer pour, is it going to meet up? In this case, we had a lot more knowledge as we were building this of exactly where this was lining up, and at every stage we knew we were coming in.
Okay, don't hide the number though. You got to tell us, how close was it?
Oh, we were within 4 millimeters on our last pour.
Wow.
Which is, pretty impressive. And
that's amazing.
Yeah, we're disappointed in the 4 millimeters because we were trending so good, but that last pour, there's just so little opportunity to manipulate the bridge that with small adjustments to make, and then you get it. But certainly now all 7 stays are in, and at this stage they're tensioned, and so we're going to call that stressing, for want of a better word. As we move out to the next segment, so on the previous picture you've seen segment 6. As we move to that segment 7, there's no stay on segment 7, so we get an opportunity to stress those stays and pull those segments up into alignment, and then you move on to segment number 8, which takes the.
So wait a second, you say pull them up. Like, when you stress those cables, like you put tension on those cables, are you saying that actually will bring up the bridge on the ends? You're putting that much force into it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. During its temporary state. And this is the beauty of trusting the engineer and trusting the construction process. The further away you go from the tower, we go back to grade 4 schooling here, and we get to the fulcrum and the lever, and the further away you go with the level of effort, the bigger the deviation is. And we got to the scenario, we got closer to the closure pour, which is the final pour that connects us from north to south. And prior to pouring our concrete, you're looking at about a foot and a half of a difference between where the concrete is pre-pour and after pour, and that's all done with your stays. It's all done with your dead load of the concrete weight and the rebar. And so you stand on at one stage and you think you're shooting for the moon, and then you get all your load on and everything ties in neatly. So
wow, that's amazing.
I have a quick question for Brian. So when you did that final pour, were there any tears of joy just to see the end of like this bridge and just to be like, oh, it's now won?
It was, I wouldn't say there was tears of joy, but there certainly was an incredible amount of satisfaction. I think we'd seen through that process, and you've probably seen some of the photographs there, the amount of people it took to build this bridge. We put a flag up of every nation on the bridge as we were constructing it, of everybody that came together to build this bridge. And on that closure pour and the time that we have in a COVID scenario where it's difficult to get people together and to celebrate it, we all stood 2 meters apart. We all looked around at each other and virtually patted each other on the back, because an incredible achievement. Given the season we had, and you seen at the start of that, everything was frozen, everything was hoarded up, and to get through that phase of works, get into the summer, it was a 7-day-a-week schedule. It was 12 to 16-hour days, and it was joy. It was a relief. I don't know if there was tears.
maybe Brian, maybe the reason you didn't cry is because you actually weren't done. So why don't you tell us? We know there's more coming. So tell us more about what's coming on the bridge here.
Yeah,
that's exactly what we can expect to see next year.
So I would hope now that the River Valley users will have seen this now as a key milestone, because there's been it's a big footprint in the valley at this stage. Certainly within the river and certainly within the trail system there. So getting ourselves into the position now to connect this bridge, it gives us access from one side to the other, and gives an opportunity now to hang the underslung shared use path, which is going to hang from the underside of the bridge, and it's going to replace, from the pedestrian perspective of it, it'll replace the old Cloverdale Bridge, and give an 8-meter wide pedestrian and cyclist cycleway, an opportunity to connect back up the trails in the north and south of the river. And the plan for that is pretty much immediate. We have been taking our berms, which are the concrete, not concrete, the rock buildup you see there in the river. We've been taking those out to give an opportunity now to place the shared use path and to get that access through in early 2021. And then give us an opportunity to build in all the trails on the north and south of the river to fully connect that back to the trail system.
Nice.
So how about Henrietta Muir Park and Louise McKinney Park? Are they coming back like they were before, or are they gone forever?
Oh, they're coming back better than before, I think is probably
Excellent.
the best thing to hear. Yeah, you're correcting, connecting up this, the two sides of it again with a new and let's call it a new and shiny bridge for everyone that's out there. It's integrated into the city landscape. I think it looks incredibly well. There'll be some feature lights that'll light this up, similar to the other bridges in this river valley, and it's certainly going to be something to be enjoyed and for many years to come.
One question that has come up quite a lot is what's going to be the lighting situation with the bridge?
Yeah, so the lighting situation is obviously our towers. I'll start with the easy stuff. Our towers, because they have an impact on the skyline, they've got to have their little flashing beacon to make sure that we're not invading some airspace. But each stay cable then gets a light that'll shine up it, so it'll point up towards the tower, and just to highlight the stays and to bring them out. And then there's a lighting system then for the shared use path, which will be hidden away and tucked away nicely in the handrails of the shared use path, and that lights up that walkway for everybody else. And then there's a couple of lights then that are cast into that deck, and which will shine up for just the train area and everything else. Not as shiny and as fancy as some of the other feature bridges are out there, but that's the intent, is to not have it as intrusive in the river valley.
So just before we move on, then, say it how it's pronounced one last time, Brian. I'm putting you on the spot here a little bit. What's the name of this bridge?
There we go. We go at Tawatinâ.
Close. So close. And I know this is a struggle, so I did this to you on purpose. Tawatinâ is how you say it. Tawatinâ. It starts with a T, but you say it with like the sound of a D, just like my name. No,
Yeah.
Tawatinâ.
It's in Cree and it means valley.
It is the Cree for valley, yes.
Yes.
Excellent. All right, and that's my lead into the next slide. So this one, as you can see, it looks a little harder to pronounce. So I'm going to put Matt on the spot just because I'm picking him. He's the first one I looked at on my screen. Matt, I'm going to let you see.
I've got the Davies Station. It's as easy enough. Davies, the D. Okay. The Kâhasinîskâk pedestrian bridge.
Ooh, so close. Yeah, actually,
bad.
it's pretty good. Not bad.
You give me a hand.
Yep.
All right. The way you say that is Kâhasinîskâk. Kâhasinîskâk. Another Cree word. And Isabel, what does it mean?
Kâhasinîskâk. One second. Let me just find that.
Oh, I'm putting you on the spot now. Okay, well, you look that up. I'll tell the folks a little bit about this bridge. So this, again, replaces another pedestrian bridge over Connors Road. So this is as you're heading up Connors Road. The original bridge was a little too short. You can't get the trains underneath it, so it needed to be raised. And in the process of raising it, it was also then just replaced. Additionally, if those that are familiar with the trail systems in the river valley, there was a 90-degree bend on each end of that bridge that was a fairly hazardous bend, I would say, for cyclists coming through. Maybe not somebody walking or running, but cyclists for sure had to make a pretty tight bend as they were coming down the trail system. So as a part of the raising of the bridge, it's also been realigned slightly. It crosses Connors Road now at an angle, and it also has an additional pier that is located between the roadway and the trackway. Beautiful bridge. You can see some design elements that are incorporated into it. The whole project here, it's interesting. For those of you that may not know, there's a lot of effort put into the architectural designs that Transit's been building here. We call that sustainable urban integration, and it touches absolutely everything that we build. We have architects on the team working directly with the city and following their requirements that are very important to the city to make sure that everything that's being built is integrated with the environment that it's located within. And this Kâhasinîskâk bridge is no different than anything else on the alignment. So we're proud of that. And as you can see, it's well underway. Construction open to pedestrians and cyclists right now. So get yourself down there and go for a walk in our beautiful river valley.
Yeah, and right. Kâhasinîskâk actually means slow moving water over stones.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's keep moving.
Let's go to Marisol to tell us a little bit about landscaping. People have been seeing lots of beautiful things happening around the tracks and the train system that we're putting up. So give us a little bit of an update.
Yeah, so this is actually perfect to talk about landscaping because we were just looking at areas on the north and south sides of the river and around Connors Road, where we've done a lot of landscaping over the last season here. So obviously along the alignment, there's a lot of areas that require landscaping along the track and the residential areas. But part of our landscaping is also to do restoration, which is really neat. So some of the things I want to highlight are about the types of restoration that we're doing on the project and have completed so far. So in total, there is about 5 acres of just in total all of the landscaping that we're doing on the project, but that includes restoration. We have naturalization areas, we have native forest restoration areas, and we also have some fisheries habitat enhancement and offsetting areas as well that are all kind of encompassed under that scope of restoration. So in the photos that you can see up there, some of the really neat features in the restoration work that we're doing is, one, we're obviously reestablishing the native plants that were already in that area before we disturbed it with our construction. So we want to restore these areas back to how they were before with that native vegetation. So in that one photo, the big one there, that is actually on the south side of Connors Road. And you can see a few of the different features that we've installed. So one of them, it looks like a dead tree. It's a snag, but that actually also functions as a wildlife enhancement feature. So when we have those, both the woody debris on the ground that we've kind of spread out in these areas, as well as installing these snags, they're going to help us by returning, hopefully, some of the wildlife back to the area, encouraging things like birds to come and use them to build some cavities for nesting and things like that, which is really neat. You can also see some of, in the foreground of that picture, there's a little section of smaller plants that are kind of, they have orange tape around them. Those are some of the forbs that we've planted. And for those forbs, because this is in one of our restoration sites, those seeds for those forbs were actually collected from the river valley about 3 years ago. So we had, teams of people go out there, collect the seeds from the plants in the area, and then go take them, grow them in greenhouses and nurseries for us to then reinstall when we completed construction in those areas. So the seeds that we've planted in some of these areas are not just, something you go to the greenhouse and you can buy on the shelf in a garden center, but they're actually seeds that we collected. So they're the genetically local seeds from that area that we're now reestablishing back into these communities as well.
That is really neat.
amazing.
Is that something that's done on other projects, or is that unique to the Valley Line?
It is kind of unique to the Valley Line. You are seeing it in like other restoration projects as well, using or trying to use at least genetically local seed sources. Definitely using the native plant material, but the genetically local one is pretty unique to us. It's not done very often because it is kind of a challenge to get out there, you can imagine, and collecting the seeds from these plants and then being able to germinate them and grow them and have different factors contributing like that.
Wow, so that was done quite a while ago. Then
Yeah.
for sure. Go, sorry, Elizabeth, didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, that's
You go
okay.
ahead.
Do you have any stats on the number of trees that are being planted, shrubs, or anything like that
Yeah,
that you can share with us?
Yeah, so in total for all of the landscaping, there is about 12,000 trees that we're planting throughout the alignment. We have over 100,000 shrubs and grasses and forbs that are all being planted in the areas. As well as for our restoration, we also have about 6,000 live stakes that are being planted as well. So actually, if you go into the next slide there, a lot of people might not know what live stakes are. So the ones in the photo here, this is part of our habitat enhancement for fisheries that we're doing. So the live stakes is essentially, it looks like a stick. You're not taking a typical plant that you would install that's got like a root ball on it and things like that you're installing into the soil, but essentially you take a cutting from the plant material and you're going to install that into the soil, and eventually it will sprout. It's going to develop roots, which helps us to stabilize the soil, which helps us to prevent erosion and things like that. And then in these areas along the river, that's also going to provide shade to also develop a really nice habitat for fish and some protection and cover for them as well, and other wildlife too. So this is something that we completed this fall, where you can see all of the leaves kind of sticking up along the bank there, and those are all the live stakes of willow that we installed into the riverbank.
Marisol, that picture on the bottom right there, that's an excavator obviously beside the river, but that looks like, is that the Tawatinâ Bridge in the background? It seems like we're a long ways away from the bridge. What are we doing working so far downstream?
Yeah, so it is a ways out, but part of our, and Brian can pipe in here too, so part of the bridge construction, we had these big berms in the water. So these berms in the water took up a pretty big footprint in the river, obviously. And so part of our requirements to be able to make that happen with all the approvals to be able to do that work in the river is we had to do some fisheries habitat offsetting. So those berms in the water took up, good habitat for fish to spawn and thrive and things like that. So we had to create these areas to enhance the habitats. We identified a few locations along the south bank of the river where we did some restoration treatments like this using gravel bar, tow staking, and live staking as well to help us create more habitat for fish.
Nice.
Wow.
And
This is so much more than just an LRT project. That's very apparent.
To that point, I think there's an element of it where, our excavator drivers, they tend not to get the credit for being as subtle as they possibly can be. They do move a lot of heavy dirt, but in this case, we got some expert excavator operators to get in there and get those willow stakes in, and it was a delicate operation to keep that footprint quite low, and to get all these willow stakes in, and to do it with the same crew that you're using to pull out a berm and to do mass excavation and mass earthworks, again, just shows the diversity and the versatility of some of our crews.
I would say all of our school crews, if you think about it, I mean, we have people working all across this alignment, and I'll take the opportunity right now actually just to give a shout out to our workforce that's been working in a COVID environment as well. We've been encouraging our workforce and requiring our workforce to follow the Alberta Health guidelines and everything that Dr. Hinshaw is recommending. And it's not an easy thing to do in the middle of summer in the heat, and now in the winter even wearing a mask. So I think we owe it to all of our crews a huge thank you for working so hard to get what we've gotten done this summer in the midst of COVID. So thank you everyone that's listening in, that's on the TransEd workforce, and all of our subcontractors.
Yeah, the crews have done such an amazing job in the midst of COVID. It's not been an easy time for sure. Marisol, one question about what's the story behind that beaver picture?
Oh, yeah. So this was actually while we were still installing the stakes on that section there. And on one of the mornings, we had gone in and we saw some beavers in the area. There was a beaver lodge in the area that we're working in, but we kind of maintained a safe distance around it. We didn't have any issues of conflict. But some of the crews were saying, hey, there's some beavers in the area. And we went to look, and I think I actually took that photo through my binoculars. But the beavers were actually going in the day after we had installed these willow stakes, and they were eating some of them and taking them to their
You're kidding.
It was the day after that we'd installed them, and we couldn't do anything about it. We're like, but we just put these here. But obviously those are going to help out the beavers too. So, we're just doing what we can to help out all the beavers in the river, and hopefully they don't eat all of them so that these will still root out and start to sprout up in the springtime as well. But it was just kind of funny to see the day after we'd installed, the beavers were right in.
When a snack presents itself, you must eat it. So.
Yeah,
I say that all the time. Oh yeah. My wife tends to disagree, but if there's a snack, it's presenting itself to me. All right, Matt, I think we're heading down to Davies Station now, buddy. So shine up your forehead. Tell us a little bit about what's going on down there.
Actually, wait, Matt, before you start, is your full name Matthew? Is that what it is? Yeah? Okay. I always wondered about that. Carry on, sorry.
It's got for a while, I was the only Matthew on site. It was bizarre. Now there's like 6 of us. So Davies Station. Thank you, by the way, for letting this clip go after Marisol's, where it shows the beautiful environmental, and then it shows Davies yard as we're building up around it. So yeah, this is Davies Station from October of 2019. That seems like a lifetime away already. What you're looking at here is it makes it even snow covered. What you're looking at there is we would have just finished up the structural steel that would have come into the major part. Again, this station is an elevated station, so it's really a building that's around a bridge, not the Kâhasinîskâk. I still can't say it, so I'm not going to say it again. Anyway, what you've got the station that connects up to the spans, and then all of that beautiful roof steel. And then underneath it, you have the ground and the mezzanine levels, including staircases that feed up to it to make the station proper. So a little bit of detail on this picture. You're driving in, looks like coming in off of the north side, off of 75th and Davies and Wagner. But
let's go to the next slide. I think we'll see that a little better.
Yeah, you probably see it
We'll
better.
ignore the snow, but there you go.
Yeah, so here we're looking at it in January. So your roof steel is done. Underneath that hoarding where you're seeing all that orange and white is a ton of activity. So what we were doing in that time is the masonry walls were going up on the outside. We were starting to build in all the concrete slabs and everything on the inside of that building as the steel was going in. And you can see the little starts of that timber roof starting to go through. So
we're going to see more of that, I think, in a second here.
Yeah, you'll see more of that in a second. So yeah, here we go again. As you're driving up 75th, and you can see that Davies yard at this point was full of trailers and work. I think we might have even still had the site trailers in on that point. The crane jumping in to get all of that work in. That roof steel was a pretty impressive thing to get in. We had to build it up in sections just because it was so wide to get it across the double spans. We had to put in what we called the hockey sticks, which are the vertical pieces that connected up to the track. Then the arches and the clear story sat in, and they had to get the guys to weld it into place. So it was quite the undertaking, but we got it done and to move it from there.
Yeah, fantastic job. I mean, I love that photo. Actually, go back to just for a second. And I know I mention this anytime I get the opportunity to. First of all, before I mention it, what you see in the background on the left there is the elevated guideway. So that is the portion of the track that Transed's building. It's about 1.2 kilometers long, if I remember right. And it takes the tracks up over 75th Street, which is a busy commercial corridor, through the Davies Station and Davies Park and Ride, and then over and through Wagner Park, which is the second bend, I suppose you'd say, in the photo here. Crosses the railway as well, the heavy rail. And then over top of Argyle Road, comes right back down onto the center of 83rd Street. So about a 1.2 kilometer section, great place to take a look. If you're driving by now, it's very obvious, obviously, and something that's very unique in the city of Edmonton as well. Go ahead, Matt, tell us more about the station and the park and ride.
Yeah, so now you're starting to look at, and again, it kind of, with the park and ride right now, this was when September, so it kind of looks like something out of Mad Max Fury Road or something, but
great analogy.
Right. It was dusty. So what you're starting to see for the park and ride is there's the storm pond going in the corner. You're starting to see some of the curb buildup. What you're not seeing around at this point, all the soil cells are in. This is all of the big work.
What's a soil cell? That sounds odd.
Soil cells are underneath. What they do is they're retaining everything for the soil underneath it so it can procure it before all of the paving and everything comes in, so that everything gets nice and set and moves all of the environmental and landscaping moving around it. So I think there's 2 or 3 of them in the Davies Yard area as they get, which you'll never know about because the entire thing is going to get asphalted and paved.
Yeah, so that was a loaded question. Most of my questions, I probably figured that out by now. I know all the answers to everything I'm asking, but so the soil cells, I think, Marisol, you jump in here if you want as well, but the primary reason we put those in is to provide the soil medium for the vegetation above ground to grow, especially in a parking lot. So like you say, there is, I think, 3 or 4 of them. They're massive, long stretched soil cells through the medians, basically. So I think the public will appreciate when this park and ride is done and you see all of the trees, you can assume there is a soil cell underneath that is providing all kinds of soil medium, I'm not sure how you say that, Marisol, to provide the growing and health for those trees. So something, again, fairly unique, but fairly also common in parking lot areas and commercial construction.
Yeah, and again, they're gigantic, and it was a big undertaking. It took up a lot of space, but the team got them in, and it worked out really well.
So, Matt, I have a question for you. My wife asked me this the other day. If you come on the train, you stop at Davies Station, is there a place to stop and get coffee? There
will be. You're going to have to go on the train. You're going to have to go downstairs to the kiosk, but there will be a place for coffee to come down.
Excellent. So a little kiosk of some sort of the mezzanine level.
Yeah, there is a little kiosk that is sitting there that we definitely had to route in case somebody needed a coffee to get in there. So yes, you will be able to get.
Sorry, I feel like you just brought a little joy to everyone who is watching this, who drinks coffee or tea. Yeah.
That's right. As you stop. You have to go all the way down the bottom, the main floor, but yes, you can get coffee. If you're in the park, you'll hit it right as soon as you come in. So
I think I'm looking forward to the next slide, because I think you're going to take us now to the creme de la creme. This is some public art. Tell us about this.
So this is a real photo. So funny thing about this one, the public art that just went in last month So what you're looking at right now, I sent in a whole bunch of pictures to the city and everybody to say, okay, public art's done. The first thing that comes back is, wow, it looks great, but we really want to see it with it illuminated. So I sent a bunch. They were okay. This is actually taken from a city worker who was driving along 75th. And he sent it to me about 8 o'clock at night, and he said, Matt, this sure does look good. And then I instantly took it and kicked it out to absolutely everybody I could find and say, look at the station. It looks so fantastic.
Yeah,
So-
my sister-in-law was driving down there on 75th Street, I think a few weeks ago, or no, a few days ago, and she came home and she's like, Isabel, I cannot believe how great this place looks. Like she was pretty amazed. I feel like my family doesn't believe what I work on or that I'm actually doing this project until they see actual steel structures like that. So it's a beautiful, honestly, station.
Yeah, and it was amazing when we got that art glass in, and it was an undertaking. That art glass came from Germany. It was being fabricated for 10 months. Design development of it took well over 2 years. What you're looking at is a landscape, and it's an integrated landscape, and I won't get into too deep, or else the public artist will kill me because I don't know as much as she knows. But yeah, when we got it in and we turned on the lights, it really finished off that building, and everybody kind of took a few minutes to sit back and say, wow, that looks fantastic and looks complete. And just the angle you get, because it is at an angle from that platform, just looks fantastic. So it was a gigantic undertaking. It's very interesting how they got it in. They used a glass modifier that basically suctions up the panels and then lifts it up into the air from the ground through a gigantic elevated crane, sucks it in place as the guys beside it are putting in the clips. But they managed to get in all that glass. I think it was 52 pieces all in. They got it in about a week and a half. So our sub knew
That's excellent.
They're
running a little short on time on this segment, but I want to talk a little bit about that wood roof. So let's go to the next slide here, and Matt, tell us how you build that wood roof.
The wood roof, so that fantastic wood roof. So the wood roof, which was 15,498 pieces, not that anybody was counting or tracking. So that wood roof is a structural timber roof. So what it is SPF roof that was procured and then stained and then installed in sections. It was a very complicated, very difficult thing. It's hard to really see, but the arch and the pitch of that roof is very extreme, especially when it comes down in the middle. So what we had to do is we had to build a gigantic scaffolding system in the middle of that station that rolled, that we called the dance floor. And we had to put in the panels and nail it in the exact pattern, because it was structural, in order to make it so it hit all of those different steel spans. So what you're looking at is 90 meters of structural timber roof, which is 2x6 put on end, nailed a ridiculous amount of time.
I can imagine.
But it became, once we got that thing in and it closed in and all of that steel was painted, it looked fantastic. And we found ways to utilize it, because it took us roughly about 3 or 4 months to get that roof down. We had concrete pours. You're looking at concrete down the bottom. We actually used that scaffolding to hoard in the concrete beneath it and coordinated it with all the subs to say, okay, we've got 2 weeks to get this timber roof in. Let's pour concrete beneath it. And we actually used the whole thing and managed to do it at the same time.
Sounds like a busy place for sure.
It was madness. It was day-to-day coordination, just crazy.
Yeah. Great job. Hey, that photo on the right just reminds me, I actually forgot to point out what I was going to point out earlier on. Shout out to Mayor Iverson. We took him up on a tour there, I think shortly after the wood roof was done, and he stood on one end of the platform. And you can't see it, but if you in your mind combine these two pictures, in the middle on the left is a I think that's the framework for an elevator. But if you get beyond the other side of that, you can look out the end of this Davies Station, and framed by this beautiful wood roof is the city skyline. It's absolutely a stunning picture, much like the art glass. So I'm really looking forward to showing that off to people. And I say that to anybody I do these little online things with. Isabel can attest to it. It's a fantastic view. Thanks for sharing.
Mayor Dallas he's an advertiser for the Davies Station, just in case you didn't know. He's always talking about how great it looks. Yeah.
I think the next slide might talk a little bit about the parking lot, because obviously it is a park and ride. How many stalls, how many parking lot spots are there, Matt?
10, somewhere in there. What is it, Dallas?
1,300.
Oh.
Sorry. Yeah, a lot for sure. And also in this area is a transit center as well. So around the station, if you could see it above, you can see stalls where the buses will pull in. It'll be a full-on ETS transit station as well. There's a taxi drop-off. There's a kiss and ride. So it's a fully integrated transit hub for the Valley Line for sure. It's a great place. It's in the middle of a industrial commercial type area. So it's going to, I think a lot of people will park there to head downtown. That's exactly what it's kind of intended for. So certainly a hub of transportation for the Valley Line. Okay, we are running a little long, but stick with us, people. We got lots more information we want to give you. This may stretch out to be about an hour long. We're going to cover the OMF facility next, talk a little bit about the trains, and then we're going to head down into the south end of the project and talk about the commissioning and the track and the rail. So hang with us just a bit longer. All right, Eric.
Yeah, OMF is Operations and Maintenance Facility.
Yeah, so operation
Eric,
and
tell us
maintenance.
a little bit. Yeah, tell us a little bit about this.
I love this facility. It's really, really well made, and it's made to actually house all the trains that are delivered to Edmonton. It's a total of 26 that are due at the end. We've got 21 right now, and the last ones are coming. They will all be shipped by the end of the month. So basically, this year, all the production of all the 26 trains will be complete. And we will have all the trains either on their way to Edmonton or already in Edmonton. So really, really amazing stuff. So you can see inside the view of the trains sitting inside of the OMF. So you can see that there's an access where we can go under the train in order to do some maintenance. But also on the upper right hand, you see the receiving of those trains that are being done in Edmonton. So we actually ship those trains by trains, no less. So, we need to be consistent, right? So we have a special bed that is mounted on a trail bed, and the vehicle is actually shipped from Kingston, so our plant facility in Kingston, Ontario, and it's making its way all the way to Edmonton in the main yard. And then from there, it's actually transferred into a truck. So if you look at the lower right picture, you can see just a little bit of it, but it's a special truck, very, very long, because we have a 7-car module, and we are transporting that into the OMF at night. So actually, we've got one that's supposed to be coming in on one of the weekends. So it'll be there around 1 o'clock in the morning. So that's the kind of timeline that we're having when we receive a car. It takes about 8 days to come from Kingston to make its way to Edmonton, and then the guys come in the wee hours of the night in order to receive that train. It's escorted by police and all the special transport required to do that, and we have to maneuver our way into the yard and get that train out. So a very, very interesting thing. Nobody really is seeing this, but it's a very interesting prospect. Little bit of information is that people are not necessarily aware of that, but we have 8 plants involved in the fabrication of that train from all over the world. Yeah. So we've got not only Kingston that's doing the final assembly and the preparation, as well as the testing. So we're doing dynamic testing of those vehicles at Kingston to make sure that everything is working and is performing as intended. So we're doing the verification all the way up to the maximum speed of 80 kilometers an hour. And also we've got all those other plants that right now have basically completed their work. So it's been gradual, but right now we have only the Kingston plant activities left, and putting the final touches on the very last train before they actually are loaded into those trail beds and brought in Edmonton. So what you see, of course, is the OMF right now, and it's a very, very well prepared and well organized maintenance facility. You see there's platforms on the side to allow us access to the top of the train. This is where we actually have all the power equipment and everything that's needed to operate the vehicle. So the LRV, or light rail vehicle, that we have right now is a low floor vehicle. So that means that when you board the train, you will not have really a step. It's going to be at the same level as what you have when you're coming in. So very, very easy of access. and you'll be able to bring in your bike, because we have some specific storage areas within the train to be able to bring your bike from all the way from the south end into downtown if you want to bike into the downtown, but also to do the opposite if you want to visit your friends on the south end of Edmonton, right? And we also have some special locations for people with reduced mobility, and it's all organized in a way that's really is effective for everybody. So the interior is very spacious. Right now we can house easily 374 people per train. So it's a lot of people. And it's also done in a way that is going to be extremely economical for the city and for Edmonton. We have a train that's actually designed to carry that amount of people to be effective, but also we're being smart about it. We're actually saving energy with those trains. So we're actually regenerating energy. So as we're braking, we're taking that power and we're bringing it back in the line in order to save cost and to make sure that we preserve the environment. So really smart stuff done by a lot of people, and a lot of very interesting technology. Also, what you notice, it may not be so visible, but when you're actually standing inside of the train, you can actually see through the wall of where the driver sits, and you can see through the window of the driver. So you see where you're going, really. It's really quite interesting and a very
that's different than the current system too. So, I mean, when you stand at the end of the trains that the city operates right now, you can't see where you're going. You'll see that on these trains.
Absolutely.
You can see over the shoulder of the driver.
Yeah, yes, it's literally over the shoulder of the driver. So, you're there, you see that your station's coming, say, okay, I need to start getting up and preparing. Okay. You've got the hand strap, you've got the poles, you're going to be able to get yourself ready. And then when
I got a question for you.
I
got a question for you. I have to ask this.
Okay, go for it.
My grandma, I grew up with a grandma that she was an amazing lady. She's since passed away, but she would keep all of her furniture covered in plastic. Please tell me that you're going to uncover that seat for the driver. You're not going to get that plastic.
Absolutely. Well, we're so much precautious about the trains, and we want them to be perfect when they go into service. We put plastic over top. When you go to the dealership and you see a brand new car, you see some plastic and things protecting the different location in the car. Well, we're doing the same thing. We want to make sure everything is in tip-top shape and everything is beautiful and ready for the very first passenger coming on board. So that's part of the precautions that we're taking. And of course, the vehicle has traveled quite a long ways. So we need to take those precautions to assure that everything is preserved, right?
One question for Eric.
Go ahead, Isabel. You go first.
Yeah.
One question is that lots of people from the public have been asking about the amount of sound that's going to come from these trains. So can you touch on a little bit of how much noise or sound is going to come from it, when it's traveling? Because it's close to many neighborhoods too.
Yeah. So not a whole lot. And that's actually something to be really careful about, right? People think that it's going to be making a lot of noise, and they're used to maybe freight trains and things like that are very heavy. Well, this is a light train, and even with a lot of people in it, it's riding quite comfortably. It has a lot of wheels to absorb those vibrations and good suspension. So you end up not having that much noise on those trains. And it's also a reason why whenever you get close to the track, you need to make sure that you cross at the right location. You cannot assume that you will hear the train coming. It's very silent. Now, of course, we're very sensitive about noise and vibration. Like, for example, in downtown with the bouncing track, which is really a big spring absorber to make sure that we dampen anything that could remain. We're actually making sure that we're going to verify the noise that is being made, and we're using special precautions along the alignment in areas where we may think it may be a little bit too much for some, right? So in all, there's a lot of different mechanisms that we're using in order to preserve the environment and to reduce the sound for everybody. Now, we do have some warning horns and warning bells, and the horn is actually quite impressive. It makes a pretty big noise, but also we've got some very low noise, chime in order for people to understand, oh, I'm getting here, right? But also we've got a horn say, hey, get out of the way, same as what you would have with a big truck, but it's not the kind of thing that we operate all the time. Yeah, exactly. So it's actually quite interesting. I think people will be surprised at how little noise it makes. And again, I would like everybody to really be careful when they start seeing the trains running. Don't assume that you'll be hearing it. Make sure that you really look before you cross, and that you do cross at the right location.
That's a great segue. Let's talk a little bit about commissioning too. We're going to switch over to Brian here shortly, but I want to make sure people understand that the trains are out on the tracks. You can get down into the Millwoods. You'll see them running on the tracks now. That's a good indication of how we're progressing towards getting to passenger service. So commissioning is starting in the south end. It's going to gradually extend towards the north end into the downtown. So watch for the trains on the track for sure. You're going to see traffic signals coming online as well. A lot of that infrastructure is up. A lot of the signal fixtures are covered right now, but they'll be coming online soon. So we want the driving public to be aware of that. Lots of progress happening in the south and on that, actually the entire alignment happening that way. One thing I want to point out that often gets asked to us is, what is there crossing arms? Is there bells and gates at the intersections? There's not. This system is integrated with the neighborhood, as Eric has kind of mentioned in the past here too, and it's the cars, basically the LRVs, the trains, run with the speed of traffic. They cross the intersections at the same time the vehicle traffic would cross. It's very integrated. It does not cause disturbance to the neighborhoods the way that some might expect. It's going to be very integrated that way. So as a driver, the message that we want people to understand from the safety standpoint is just simply follow the traffic signals. There's nothing unique about it. If you've got a red light, stop at it. If you've got a green light, you can continue. One thing that's unique about the Valley Line, though, is right-hand turns. Typically in North America, you can make a right-hand on a red when it's safe to do so. Make sure you're following designated signals for right-hand turns. You will see stop signals dedicated just for that turn, and that's because you may not see the train approaching from behind you or on your right, typically. So we just really want to make sure the public is aware of that, and just be prepared for that and follow the signals, and you'll be perfectly safe. All right, Brian, I'm going to bring you on again. Tell us a little bit about what I like to call the civil work, or the roadway type work, and also the stop work that we see in the picture here that's happening on the south end of the project. What have we seen happen in the last year down there?
Excellent. Well, just from listening to Eric there and Matt, I'm going to have to up my enthusiasm. It's difficult to get the enthusiasm for civil work that Eric has for a train and Matt has for a station. But I'll certainly try and sell this as best I can, because what's happened in the south side of the job over the last year has been nothing short of just, incredible. It may not look like it, because there's not a massive change to the landscape, but, we flipped that traffic multiple times to be able to give us the access to complete this track that runs right through 66 and up across Whitemud and onto 75th Street. And I think the public will have seen that, and they've been patient all year, and they're beginning to get their road back now. But what we've done through that area is we've been able to get the rail done right from Millwoods right back up through the whole alignment. But that area now has its OCS poles up, his OCS being the overhead catenary system. Poles that you see there right in the middle, it carries the power. I'll not pretend to know as much about power as Eric does, but I'll tell you that we do need them to run the trains. And that is the plan for the 2021 season, is that we get some trains out on that track and we get them going at speed. And we need those lines overhead to be fully energized. So be very aware of that when the wire is up, the line is live. You can see there we're flipping over and back between a couple of different photographs. We've got the rail here, which again is, it integrates quite well into the environment around it. We've got a massive amount of landscaping that's done along 66th Street. A lot of planting, a lot of shrubs have gone in, some trees. And as Marisol touched on earlier on, like, they're all native, they're all species that are from this area here. And, to be fair, the area has just been completely rejuvenated because of this. It looks incredibly well. And our track slab is fully completed through that area as well. So you've got your rail, as Ken touched on earlier. It sits on these little concrete plinths, these little upstands, and small little pads that are underneath them just for shimming purposes, and likewise for ridership and comfort of riderships, that you're not bouncing rail off concrete. I think we go look at some of the crossings where you see us crossing some of the avenues there, 28 Avenue, 34th Ave, 38 Avenue, where we've got some of these crossing and signal bases in place. You will see some signal arms that are in those areas then as well. They'll be fully operational in the 2021 season, certainly when we're testing trains. So for the public, just to be...
Point of clarity, Brian, when you're saying signal arms, you mean what we see in the picture there up in the top, right? You're not talking about the gates coming down, right? Just to be sure.
Correct. Yes. Sorry, signal lights rather than signal arms, yes. Just to make sure that everybody's aware that, you know, the trains and the systems are all coordinated in with the traffic system, and it allows that train to pass through. So it's you know, a very
you know, you say you don't get excited about civil work, but I do. I'm a civil background, and for me, when I see asphalt, like you see there, the black top go down, that is the smell of completion. So some people don't like that smell. I actually love the smell of asphalt. Call me crazy, but I love the smell of asphalt. The other thing is
for sure.
is absolutely a sign of completion, and there's a lot of things that are signs of completion that I want to point out to the public as well. So we've mentioned a few of them on the call. The underslung pedestrian walkway across the river that Brian talked about earlier in the presentation, that is going to be a sign for you that we're getting near completion as well. The OCS poles and all these overhead cables that you're seeing go up right now, again, you can't have the cables and the power you can't commission the trains until you have the cables and the power. So that's another sign as you see us working along the alignment to get that installed, and then eventually the trains running down there. Again, another sign of getting close to completion. What we like to tell the public is, first of all, we can't give you a date. We'd love to be able to give you a date of when this train is going to be operational. 2 points to make. When you see the trains in the downtown area and you see them running on the track, you know we're very close. Go buy your ticket. And by the way, you buy your regular ETS ticket, nothing special, just the usual tickets. And now I've forgotten what I was going to say. We'll get to that in a second, Isabel. Don't worry.
Maybe one point that's important. Maybe one point that's important.
I want to talk about, we had said 30 years of operation. So what's really important to TransEd is not as much about when we're going to open, it's about being ready to open. We're going to operate the system for 30 years. We want to do it right. We want the quality of what's being built to be exactly what the City of Edmonton has asked for, what City of Edmonton citizens have paid for. And at the same time, we want something that we're going to be able to operate and not have issues with. So this system will not open until it's absolutely 100% ready for operations. We're working hard to get ready. We'll give you a date as soon as we can. But right now, just pay attention to all those little aspects of construction. That's going to give you a really good indication of when to go buy your ticket. All right, I think our next slide is the stops. Brian, tell us about the stops.
I will do. And this is the sort of the last defining moment of the project. We've seen the stations, we've seen the bridges, we've seen some of the rail and some of the OCS, but you know, it's all irrelevant if you can't get onto the train. So, you know, these are the key areas across it. We've got 11 stops across the project that are giving you the access at road level. I think Isabel, you touched on at the start of the meeting there that this is a low floor train. It's accommodates all types of vehicles, or all types of access, you know, wheelchairs, bikes, whatever we need to get onto the train. It's low floor, and all of the stops that are now getting completed, you should see right through the alignment. We've got all of the steel columns are up, and we're starting to put the roof on most of the stops and getting it ready now for all of the systems and little jewelry, we'll call it, for, you know, completing the project. So we've got some lights to go up, we've got some cameras that'll go in, we've got some fancy glazing that'll go up with some artwork on it. That's all going to happen in that 2021 season, which just completes these stops and makes them ready for the public. So as Dallas touched on earlier on, when you start seeing the line and some of these key milestones, when you start seeing the stops getting ready for turnover, you know, they're getting ready to take a train. So that's the 2021 season, and we'll work through the winter on that one. It's good work. It's dry. It's above ground, and it's easy to get completed. So, you know, we've got a 6-month window to get all of that done, and looking forward to seeing everyone's reaction when these are all completed.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting times for sure.
Mm-hmm. It really is.
And that brings us to the end. Yeah, sorry, Dallas. I feel like you're going to say something.
No,
I can
no,
hear
you go
your
ahead.
breath in there, prepping
Sounds like
yourself. It's that microphone breath. Please go ahead.
No, I was going to say probably the same thing as you. Is it's really a final shout out to our partners, the City of Edmonton. They've been walking alongside us as we work through 5 years of design and construction and coordination. So it's a big thank you to them. Thank you to our workforce and our subcontractors, like we mentioned before. Thank you to all of you guys for joining Isabel and I today and sharing your wealth of information and knowledge. You guys have done a fantastic job leading your teams. We know that we've got another successful few months ahead of us, and we will all be riding those trains. And if Eric lets us, maybe driving them too. Pretty sure that's not going to happen.
I don't think that's going to happen.
No,
Yeah.
You can ride them.
We want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas as we come up to that season, and a Happy Holidays and a Happy New Year. Stay safe in this COVID environment, and we'll do the same.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah. Take
Thank
care.
you.